Welcome to the Prep Pastors Podcast. My name is The Real Kirk, and in the seat next to me, all the way in the great state of Alaska, we've got The Real Phil. Dude, thanks for hanging out with me today. Are you having a good day?
So far, I have yet to shoot anybody today. Day's young, and I make no promises.
Indeed. I am also in that boat, but we just want to welcome all of our viewers. Thank you to our supporters. Let's get started. Change things up a little bit there.
Yeah.
We threw talk and then the intro. Right. Yeah. Anyway.
I just talk all the time. I don't have to MC anything. That's the comment, is that I just talk all the time, whether you can hear me or not. Whether you're talking or not.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a good point.
If you're new to TBIs. If I don't say it when it comes in my head, it may not be there in a minute. So bear with me if I think it's important.
Hey, listen, man, you got your TBI as an adult. At least you got to live most of your life without your TBI. Like I got my TBI when I was like 3, so like that's no problem at all. So
remember, I mean, that's what I always tell the VA. They're like, so do you have any head injuries? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, I don't think I don't remember. So.
Oh man. Well, neither of us have
I could lose half a brain
yet today.
The VA.
That's right.
Anyway,
that's right.
Talk about a bad trip. Let's get on something else.
Exactly. Well, apologies to our viewers. This would be yet another month where we are bypassing our live week. We were supposed to be live today. Just isn't working out.
It only but a couple hours prior.
Right. But I got a bunch of family coming into town and getting ready for my mom's service tomorrow. So that is a big deal. So unfortunately, just the live was just not gonna match out. So we couldn't do that. But yeah, bad.
Only
a
couple hours.
So, but
because you're not going to edit.
No, whatever happens is what happens. Unless something critically weird happens, I don't edit this show because that takes copious more amounts of work and rendering and those kinds of things. So what's happening right now? I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling you having a you having a wardrobe malfunction? You don't even watch the Super Bowl. You quit that.
Years and decades ago. Yeah, that's true.
Hey, so
famous Jackson slip.
Right. Yeah. I didn't need any of that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about current. Let's jump into current events. Where are we current event wise? Have you got any intel for us? I think we're looking at yet another bank is in process of collapsing.
Yes. One has actually collapsed. It is being purchased by. I think they're going to probably sell this one to Chase again, and then there's another one that has PacWest lost over 50% of its value in a day, just a day ago. It's Wednesday of this week. So there are two that are actively collapsing at the moment. Coincidentally, I'm sure it has nothing to do with it. They're both primarily stakeholders of California. So, I can't figure out why all these California banks keep going broke.
Well, First Republic is actually a Washington, Oregon bank. So,
yeah, but where are most of their holdings?
Oh, that's a real good point. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yep. California is where banks go to die or launder money.
West
pretty much the same
Coast.
thing.
I thought they went to Ukraine to launder money.
West
I thought
Coast
that.
was a hostile takeover of Columbia. Columbia Bank did a hostile takeover of West Coast Bank. That was a while ago.
Gotcha. And I'm also I'm wearing my Colorado hat today. One because of it's red Friday, red, right? Um, and
Right.
also I am grieving for all the Christians that have remained in Colorado now that they are a fully leftist state, that they have now decided that they can knock off your child's genitals without your knowledge, that someone can now take your child. And just like Washington, Oregon, and California has joined. So I'm wearing this hat to grieve the state my son was born in, because my son was now born in a state that would mutilate him if he went through a minor bout of mental illness. And so yeah, I've got a lot of people that I dearly love that I'm trying to coax come out of her, my people. So
Yep. Well, the thing is, God's pretty clear in the Bible about how those handled, and I understand that in our American culture, it is culturally difficult for most of us to grasp doing the right thing in the face of serious consequences,
sure,
um, because other people who we should not be listening to, those who don't hold our same values and beliefs, have determined something to be okay or not okay. Um,
correct,
you know, follow the rules
correct.
until they conflict with God's rules, which point,
Yep.
get ready for consequences and doing the right thing. I mean,
Yes.
bad things happen to good people when they do the right thing sometimes.
Yep.
But again, I would rather be vilified, eviscerated, hung, whatever,
Hmm.
um, and go to heaven with a clear conscience for having defended my child.
Sure.
Um, I don't consider killing evil to be murder, and neither does the Bible if you read
Neither
it.
does the Bible.
But our culture will vilify and go after you if you try to defend innocence, as we're seeing in New York. So, current headlines today: the veteran stopped a homeless person who's mentally ill and was attacking people. Well, the homeless mentally ill person subsequently died. I don't believe there is a direct tie to the actions of the veteran. And by the way, there was three people. It was not just the veteran, and obviously it wasn't racist. There was a black man involved in holding this other black homeless man down because, of course, all the libtards are screaming racism, racism. It's what they do, and they don't know what else to
Right.
say. They're not
Right.
intelligent people. They have
Right.
Satan within, so they say stupid things that make sense. You just have to
Sure.
understand that if you're speaking with a liberal, they have Satan within them, and
Mhm.
as such, they will say things that don't make sense because
Correct.
there's a different logic that happens in the heavenly realms. So,
Yes.
with that said, you can absolutely reap consequences for doing the right thing. There is such a thing as martyrs. There will be more of them soon.
Oh,
It
yes.
happens whenever we have this global strife, but global strife is coming. It is here. The
Yeah.
news that I was reading this morning as I was drinking coffee and doing my morning was financial collapses in Europe, which again, we've watched them come. They've been lying about them. They've been trying to not say that it was happening, but no, there's significant collapses happening. There's banks in Europe
Yes.
collapsing wildly. Um, the one of the reasons why our country's economic situation has not been quite as prevalent, and people don't understand, at least in mainstream media, is because it's so much worse everywhere else. So
Correct.
things are bad here, and if we do this, only look at here thing, things are bad. Things are really bad and getting worse. Um,
Right.
but if we go like this, they're way worse elsewhere.
Right.
China, a lot of reasons China's doing what they're doing is because they are absolutely falling apart
Oh,
financially,
100%.
um, you know, with their people within their own party. Same with Russia. Russia's got a lot of problems. I mean, this is global war. This is what happens. We have these periods of unrest, and it's when we end up in these global wars. So World War III has already started. We're in it.
Yep.
We should stop pretending like we're not. I mean, we did it in World War II. Of course, back then we weren't calling them world wars. It was the Great War, and then we got
Right.
dragged into the European conflict with most people at the time. Most people who were up on the political situation abroad understood that the second conflict was nothing but a continuation of the first.
Right.
And I've seen some logical arguments drawn to state that the conflict now can once again also be correlated to the first two as well. I think the
Sure.
reality is, as much as we like to think that things stop and end and generations happen and people forget and move on, history is all linked, and history is not as long
Correct.
as a lot of people it is. We've only really been around a couple thousand years. It's not the hundreds and millions that everybody says. There's tons of evidence of that.
Sure.
But if you even just look within our own culture and history, things are very linked. And
Yeah.
I wish they weren't, but they are.
Well, I was listening
But
to.
they are. We're all God's people.
We're all God's
Red,
people.
yellow,
That is
black,
for
and
sure.
white.
I was listening to a clip from Jack Hibbs today, and I know a lot of people have feelings about Jack Hibbs one way or the other, but he went off on a pretty great tirade on the Babylon Bee, talking about the fact that the Christian nationalism that says that this country is so pure that we are outside of the wrath of God is just a falsehood. There's only one nation that has been promised to exist for all time, and that's the nation of Israel, and that ain't us. And so,
And you don't want to be them, because tribulation is like the whole end times tribulation thing is
yeah,
specifically for them. That is their refinement from
to
where
call
we're
them
at. So let's
back.
not try
That's
to
it.
and grab that. Like, I don't want to go be with them through that.
No,
I'll
I
I'll
agree.
hang on to my salvation and leave.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
I, I
go on.
totally
No, this
I
is good.
totally agree. But no, I think that I think it was really profound for him to remind people of that. I think a lot of people think, oh,
Yeah.
Jesus will come back before America suffers. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I don't find that in the Bible. Now, I think there's a lot of people. I'm rooting
Well,
for the pre-tribbers. I've said
you
that
and
on
I
this show
both
before.
are as children. We've had some suffering. You and I both have, as young children, had to go, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in a day. I know that we both went through that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it happens in our country. Not that
yeah,
there's not worse, but there's a
sure.
lot of
Oh no,
terrible
there's
things happening here.
right. I mean, and I think that I think we talked about on the show last week, or maybe I was just talking to you on the phone. I can't. Sometimes they blend together. That if you make $34,000 a year as a family, not as an individual, as a family, you're in the top 1% of financial earners in the world. So everybody cries about the top 1%, the top 1%. Well, that's really the top 1% of the 1%, because if you make $34,000 a year, if you have access to a car, much less two, you
Running
are in the top 1%
clean.
of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Clean running water,
Yeah.
indoor plumbing,
Yes.
let alone
So
internet. I mean, the new thing with FHA and USDA loans is that high speed, as in DSL, internet is now considered a basic requirement for living.
right, right.
We live in a bubble. Hey, but I like this bubble. I'd prefer not to leave it.
It's a good bubble. It's a good bubble. No, for sure.
Good bubble.
I mean, we're both planning that it's going to be taken from us. We're not going to voluntarily leave it, but it's going to be taken from us.
Good luck.
I mean, I think
You
if
could
you
try.
listen to I posted on my Instagram, Pastor Kirk Q2, on my stories today, a couple of things. He will not watch this show, but I did wish Clint Smith a happy birthday today. It is Clint Smith's birthday, so
Oh, happy birthday, old man. Does he turn
yeah.
102?
I don't know. I don't know how old he is. I think he's 70 something, but
Looks pretty
he's
good for 100.
that talked about how thankful I am that God put that dude on the planet. But I also posted in my Instagram stories a Glenn Beck clip that was talking about, some people think that there's a recession coming. Your super weird friends think that there's a depression coming, but neither are correct. There's a collapse of the global reserve currency. There's a collapse of the dollar coming. We've talked about this multiple times on the show, and yeah,
We
it's
should
happening, right?
change our language. It's happening.
It's happening. It's
Yeah.
happening right now. I mean, like, as
Mark
I'm,
bad move. It is happening.
well, I mean, I'll give you an example of where I'm at. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks ago, so I'm getting ready, prepping. I'm preparing to build our home, and we've
Yeah.
decided to put a basement. We'll call it a basement, right? It's a very airtight basement.
It's
Let's
going to
call it
have
that.
some rather expensive, less valuable subterranean space.
There you go. Very, very expensive subterranean space. That's exactly right. So as we are getting that, like my builder would put me on the list for 30 days from today to start building that if I could get a guy to show up and dig the hole. Okay. I can't get a guy to show up and dig the hole, so I can't get my builder to start building, and then I can't build the rest of the house on top of that. I'm going to build that. That'll be all on the YouTube channel. If you want to watch Free State Homestead, go subscribe. It'll all be there. But
Go
I
find a
can't do
trader.
that. But I can't do that until I get a guy to show up and dig the hole. So if I can't get a guy to show up and dig the
Yeah.
hole, then I can't get the guy to build the basement, right? And I can't get the guy to build the basement, then I can't build the house. And I really, really want to get at least the basement done before my dollars are worth nothing. So like I'm really, really actively trying to get someone to show
So
up and
you
dig
might
the
have
hole.
to buy a really large piece of equipment that you end up selling at the end of the summer.
There you go. That's exactly where we are. And I think I
That is what
think
we're seeing happen in places that are not letting this current situation hold them back, is that they're being required to do it themselves and then try to liquidate the means. And I see that evident in a bunch of situations. I'm watching it happen in our world as well up here. Um,
correct.
you just cannot uh, hire other people to do things these days very, very easily. There aren't that many people willing to do it. There aren't that many people capable of doing it. And people have
Correct.
moved on. So the detriment of printing money and allowing people to stay home and not work. Um, a lot of people scream and cry, but I'm not sure any of us realize just how bad that would kill our economy. And I'll say it again, when you have individuals in charge who are literally indwelled with Satan, um, Satan got a lot of experience in being a conniving asshole, and he knows to really, how to really screw situations up for a lot of
Yeah.
people. And he's playing this 3D, 5D chess that most of us don't play. And the reality is, because we're not called to directly combat him, he who is greater within us is the master and knowing how to deal with that kind of evil. And that's what we have to do when it comes to liberals around us as well. They
Well,
are
let's
they
be
are indwelled by and playing a long game that they don't even know what they're playing.
yeah, let's be really honest about it. If he is playing, 4D or 5D chess, and unless you actively have the Holy Spirit living and indwelling in your life, you can't even see the board.
So
I mean, and
you
and
can't
and
even
and and quite frankly, it's worse. It's worse than that. If you don't have the Holy Spirit indwelling in your life, you're just a pawn
yeah,
on the board, and you have no idea that it's like that.
you don't exist. Yeah, welcome to the Matrix.
Welcome to the Matrix, man. That's exactly right. It's the spiritual Matrix, but it's the Matrix, no question about it. Have you been to? I know you don't really go to the
Yeah.
movies, but I'm contemplating it. There's a couple of things out right now that I'd really like to go see. But there's a movie out called Nefarious. Have you heard of this?
have heard of it. I was trying to hunt down how to watch it. It doesn't
Yeah,
appear to be
it's
out on places to buy
no,
yet.
no, they're trying to get
Uh,
a real box office launch at it. And so it's in a limited release of theaters. But it's
I was the hippie movement show. Did you watch that one? What's that called? You know what I'm talking about? It was about kind of Jesus culture, hippie,
Jesus
the
Revolution.
hippie movement.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's right. Same
Birth
thing.
of Calvary Chapel and
Um,
Vineyard. Yeah,
like man buns before it was, a thing. Um, yeah, no, that was actually an excellent movie. Excellent, excellent movie. Really good. I
yeah.
bought it.
I haven't seen it, but I want to. I'm looking forward to it. So
Should. It's good.
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about this
So
areas
it's
because
just
I've
it's
heard
a it,
hints.
mhm. It's essentially like it's not horror per se, but it's a suspense thriller. It's primarily about spiritual warfare. There's not a lot of reference to Jesus per se, but as from what I understand, as the movie progresses, once or twice, the demonic influence. So basically, there's a psychologist or a reporter interviewing a convicted felon, and the convicted felon is possessed by I think multiple demons. And from what I've said, I'm going to do a pastor reacts video to it. I just need to find the time when we're
Yeah.
not grieving and planning and all the other things to go to the movie theater and watch it. But honestly,
Yeah.
though, I am. But basically, the demon refers to the carpenter a few times. Even in the previews, he's like he talks about it. He's like, you know what kills the carpenter is what he says is every time a baby is thrown onto the fires of Moloch, and it doesn't really matter whether they're wearing priestly robes or scrubs. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, whoa, it's good, man. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm not taking trip, I'm not taking the wife. So we'll go from there.
I've been sensing an awakening that's gaining ground in the last couple of weeks. Um, Unfortunately, what happens in an awakening is the lines get drawn and solidified as people wake up to what they are. And while some will come to a realization and get into the right side of things, uh, that what happens is that no man's land, like the what do you call it, between North and South Korea, the that no man's land in between, right? In World War I, when there's the side against the side, then there's that no man's dead land of death in between. Um,
Right,
it's it's the country of lukewarm.
right,
We're for those who haven't chosen a side, and it is literally the land of death. And if you're
yeah,
a lukewarm person, it's hard to see it if you're in it. Um, so that area will clean out.
sure,
And unfortunately, very few people will leave the ground to move to a side or the other. What happens is the side of evil collapses and consumes that
hmm,
entire zone. And then those who don't understand what's happening as it collapses and envelops them, if they don't waken up and leave, once it passed them, it's over. And the Bible speaks about this in the end times when it talks about the mark of the beast.
right,
Once you've taken, there's no getting out. And so what's happening right now is there are a few people waking up to see that they're dangerously close to this lukewarm or maybe even in it, and they are awakening and moving. And
yes,
in the same way, our country is having a bit of an awakening, and you could call it a revival in some sense of the word. But again, it's like we talked about last week. It's an awakening, not a revival. They're people
right,
who have been lost. They're not coming back. So a revival sort of implies this coming back to Jesus. This coming back and an awakening is totally different. And so I think it's happening. I'm watching it happening. I'm hearing some really amazing things about a very small fraction of churches in our country, and you probably are too. We haven't talked about this, but I have two today that are just, man, they are awake. They know what's going on. They are declaring what is evil to be evil, and they are with eyes wide open, walking with purpose. They're not sitting still. They're not doing nothing, and they're reaping the consequences for it, because no matter what your denomination is, and especially if you don't have a denomination, you will reap consequences as a pastor in a brick and mortar church if you speak the truth and call a spade in these
Absolutely.
political times. There is nothing political, absolutely nothing, and we shy away from politic discussions that are confrontational, and that is not what we are called to be as Christians right now. Right
Yes.
now, I'll say right now. I'm only speaking about today. You are
Yeah.
absolutely called to call the truth, because the consequences of not declaring truth on those who are blinded is life and death for them. So
Agreed.
quit being afraid to be uncomfortable and ostracized and rejected. Give them their chance and move on. That's where it's
Right.
at. Go after who God tells you to go after, but listen to the Spirit and say what needs to be said when He tells you to say it, because the consequences of disobedience in those moments right now are really pretty deep. We're running out of time for God to do one of those, you aren't obedient, so He uses someone else. Like, that's kind of a
Yeah.
thing, and it sometimes happens.
Yeah.
There's
I
not a lot of
completely
time
agree.
for anyone else.
In fact, I'll give you a
Go
great
ahead.
example. So the church that I primarily visit when I go to St. Augustine, Florida, I plugged it, I think, last week. It's called Good
Yeah.
News Church in St. Augustine. It's a really nice little church. Is it perfect? No. Are there things that I theologically disagree with? Sure, like every other church. Okay, so I'm just saying all that because if you get on Good News's
It was
website and
things
you're like,
that mattered, you would.
right, exactly. It's like they baptize babies. You can't, like, yeah, they do, but like they also baptize kids. So like I mean it's really interesting because I like it because they when they do, I've watched them baptize babies 2 weeks in a row, and it always just kind of ties my guts and knots because we don't practice that. We don't believe in that. But he's like, but I like how the pastor is kind of like I think denominationally obligated to do it, and so he's like, now understand, this does not save this child. This child still has to come to know Jesus. We just believe that God placed them in a Christian home so that they can know Jesus. This is a step of faith. And I'm like, okay, so you got a really slick looking dedication time. I got no problem with that. Anyway,
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I say all of that. I say all of that because like I've found that church over the years because I go once or twice a year, and I find it to
Yeah.
be just this very gentle, loving church. Like gentle, loving, just kind of accepting to a lot of people kind of church. Good, good,
It's a place.
good praise and worship. Very chill. A very chill church. Okay. Um, but it's interesting because recently Pastor Smiley, he's the pastor there. Literally, his name is Pastor Smiley. I love that. Anyway, um, he went to high school with my mom, by the way. Very, very cool dude. Recently, he's been getting hard. Like I was, so I've been 3 times in the last month because I was down there so much. And um,
Yeah.
I was talking to my cousin Patrick, and I was like, yeah, I wonder, does Smiley does he ever talk about abortion? Does he ever talk about like gender stuff? Does he ever talk about like what's happening in our country? And even Patrick was
Yeah.
like,
No,
not
not.
until recently. Recently, things have been changing. And then I walked into church the next day, and he like dropped a bomb
Yeah.
on abortion. Like it was awesome. Like I was super good. And evidently a few weeks before I got there,
Yes.
it's very interesting because they have law enforcement that is they have two cops there every Sunday, on duty law enforcement. One is in the driveway directing traffic because it's kind of a large-ish church, and they make sure that nothing goofy happens in the parking lot. And then they have one that is posted at the front door as a greeter for the children's ministry in the children's wing. They have one there. So and then directly between them is the main entrance to the church. So if anything goes crazy, you got two cops on site. Like, I love that, right? And the city of St. Augustine does that for.
And 10% of the do they? So is a lot of East Coast law enforcement, right? They're city or department sponsored second jobs, right? Is it one of those
Yeah,
situations
they
and the
do
church is able
moonlighting.
to like hire them through the city?
Yeah, this
Because I
is
love
like
that.
whoever's on. This is
I
who.
hate it. It's absolutely horrible for law enforcement, but I love
Right.
that the church is allowed to do that. If I was a
No, this
church
is
in an area that does that, you can't necessarily do that, but I would love to slam money at Christian police officers and pay them to come to
oh yeah,
church, in a way
100%.
like that.
100%. But it was
Yeah.
interesting because just a couple of weeks before I got there, in a sermon, Pastor Smiley had referenced the fact that there was a female officer standing out the front door, by the front door. And he's like, "Look, I'm super glad she's here. Don't mistake what I'm about to say, that I'm thankful for her." He goes, "But I'm really sad that we live in a day and age where women have to step up as protectors because there's not
Yeah.
enough men to do it." And he's like, I mean, so
Right.
he talked about gender roles. He talked about, he's talked about abortion. So, like, even in this really kind of like gentle, like happy go lucky church, you're seeing this migration away from lukewarm. And like,
How
they
do
had last Sunday was their global missions Sunday. You want to hear somebody preach with passion, invite the Brazilians onto the platform, and those dudes they'll preach their guts out, man. It was
any
awesome. It was
place
good.
that has fallen to communism and gone through what we're getting ready to go through, it has a passion. See us not do that, because so falls Babylon, so falls the rest of the world. And
Right.
here we go.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears just a little bit. We got a lot of pastory talk today. Let's get to some of the preppery talk today.
That's all right.
One of the preps that I'm really excited about is in the next 2 weeks. We will be ordering our Harvest Right food freeze dryer. So I'm very excited about
Oh,
that.
thank
Um,
goodness. Yeah.
because right now, like, I have stacks and stacks just right over there. I have stacks and stacks of eggs. And like, I mean, we're just making eggs like every day, just eggs all over the place, right? And I'm really excited
Yeah.
about that. But the problem is, it's
Long
not a
term.
problem. Right now, we're able to be blessings to people. Like, I just show up at random neighbors' houses, and I'm like, "Do you
Yeah.
need some eggs?" And like, 2 days ago, I showed up at my neighbor's house. I went to high school with her. I was like, "Hey, I brought you eggs." And she's like, "What do I owe you?" I was like, "No, you eat the eggs. That's what I need you to do. Just here's 3 dozen eggs."
5 ounce of silver. It's about the right same.
It's true. And so anyway, I'm very excited about that. So we're looking at we're looking at getting the food. I keep saying dehydrator. It's not a dehydrator. It's a freeze dryer. So there'll be
Yeah,
some
there's a
videos about
difference.
that. Yeah, there'll be some
Dehydrates
videos about
through
that.
Yeah. It creates a temperature so low that the moisture can't exist.
And then it has a
And
vacuum, and so as the through a process called sublimation, as the cell walls
yes,
explode, because of the cold, it then pulls that moisture out and puts it in a bucket outside.
but it
So
removes
I'm
it.
very
Yeah,
excited.
good point. So you can do this and freeze things, right? Flash freezing does the same process, but the difference is you're not removing the moisture; you're just sealing it.
Right. And then you have to
And
keep it frozen, and this can be shelf stable.
right, exactly, you got it.
So
They're
yeah,
expensive, and they've
they're
been
expensive.
skyrocketing in price.
So yep.
They just keep getting more expensive and harder to reach. I do see them for sale used quite a bit, and I'm very hesitant to buy a used one.
Yeah.
I don't intend on buying one. One, I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be around for that level of time to need to prepare for 10 or 20 years.
Right.
And then 2, I live in an environment where other than like 3 months a year, I can easily freeze and refrigerate things. And even there,
Sure.
in our worst heat, there are methods, tried and true methods to keep things at refrigerator temperatures without electricity and, and if you've ever been in the
Right.
woods, then you understand how this, but I would love to do the root cellar thing here.
That's happening.
It's very
That's
difficult
happening.
around in Alaska to make root cellars work.
Right.
Um, the water tables here are so close to the surface, and it's such a swamp. And even if it's has good drainage, the reality is that for a certain portion of the year, that 10 feet of snow has to go somewhere
Right.
when it
Well,
melts.
our
So there's ways to do it.
basement,
It's not cheap. Yeah.
our basement is going to have a root cellar in it. So I'm very excited about that.
I'm
Um,
excited for you. I might even come see it someday. Probably not, but maybe.
I hope so. I hope you do. Just come in the winter time when there's no hay growing and it's not ridiculously hot outside. So,
Kind of a requirement. I just found out that a good, what if I say my best friend, you'll know who I'm talking about. He never watches the show, so I think it's okay to say Ginger Cop in public. I consider him
I
my best. When I say Ginger Cop Daywalker, you know who I'm talking about. His
do. I
dad
do.
lives near you now, a couple of miles away. I guess it's an hour or two, but like by my standards, that's really
Really?
close. So I'm excited because once again, you're probably going to spend more time with my best friend than I get to. So I'm
That's
excited and
really
jealous
fun.
because surely
When we
you're
get off
gonna
this
visit.
episode, I'm calling him. I'm 100% calling him when I get off the show.
You should tell him I called him a ginger cop in front of like every single 2 viewers we have.
Every single, all three viewers that we've got. That's exactly right.
Like you said before, we have Megan and then a bunch of spam. No, no. Shout out to Megan, who
Yeah.
consistently watches
Meg's the best. Meg's
overwhelmingly
the
positive.
best.
She's
Megan
what
Maverick.
a natural.
Shout out to Megan
I
Maverick, man.
love
Those two.
the heart of an encourager, as they're so needed in
Yeah.
our culture. Among the
And then we've got
same lines
and then we've
and
got that
equally
one
as
viewer that thinks
encouraging
you're
to
not a
you.
Christian. That's pretty exciting.
Well, there is that guy. There's probably more than one. I need to
No.
get my patch out. I've got a patch that says I love Jesus, but sometimes I cuss. I should say I cuss a lot, but I do still love Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway, but if we're doing shout outs, we must always shout out my favorite viewer. I'm not going to say his name, from up here in the Palmer Matsu area of Alaska, so he'll know who he's talking about. We always appreciate him. He often will call me after a show and give lots of positive encouragement. I've noticed that he gives lots of positive encouragement after bad shows. So what a blessing
So this
he
week,
and his
you're
wife
getting a
have been a
call this week.
blessing to the family for. Nah, this is a good show. We've had a string
This
of
is
good shows, I think.
we've had a good string. We've had a good run of good shows. That is true. That is very, very true.
I can tell that it's
So
a really good show because there's like no views.
so what's a prep that you're working on? We talked on the phone the other day. You were talking about a
What
prep
am I?
that you were trying to make happen, but was really a pain in the butt, and you weren't finding what you needed. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, because I can't remember. Can you
Oil
tell me enough
change,
that I'll remember?
oil change.
Oil changes. I'm still on the hunt for it. It's difficult for me to pay $300 for 5 gallons of oil. Hurts my soul.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm wondering, maybe we should just make the move to acknowledging that it's the end of the world and the collapse of America. And I just need to do some reconnaissance for the right kind of vehicle. And as soon as they leave their oil change, go take their oil.
There you go. That sounds
So,
good.
I mean, just like as a kid, my mom used to make me wear, hand me down underwear. You probably had to also. Like
Sure.
poor kids, hand me down underwear and hand me down socks and shoes. Like that's so nasty. And tell me you're poor. That's how I know you're poor. I had to do that too. My engine doesn't get the privilege of brand new underwear. He's gonna have to wear some hand me down underwear. It might just have to be slightly used in another vehicle.
There you go. There you go.
I see a
I
coexist
hundred.
sticker on something, gallons of good diesel oil. I am totally freaking taking it.
So I'll say this: I'm lucky to be the oldest, and I'm the only boy, and I'm the biggest. So like so thankfully, but
That's the thing. You know what? I had the same thing too, but I had some older cousins, so.
but I
But
definitely
you had to
got
wear
some
the
yard
women's
sale
underwear.
yard sale underwear, socks, and that happened a couple of times.
It's so
So
funny how like the worst of kids can all commiserate because we all had the same stuff. We all went through the same stuff.
well, and the moment that I went from being the smallest kid in school to the fattest kid in school,
Yeah.
like I also had to wear dad's underwear for a while too. So like there was this transitional phase when I was like yeah, that was the 100%. Now, you look at dad now and me, and you can't even imagine that
Yeah.
there was ever a day when I fit into that man's underwear because my dad,
Nope.
this is approximately this big. That's my dad right there, you know.
Uh,
So
it's pushing it on the thick side. Um, yeah, totally, completely. That's so funny. It really is.
so
No.
I mean,
So, what am I doing on preps? I am absolutely packing away as much ammunition as I cannot afford. I am actively continuing to put away all gold and silver that I can get my hands on.
yes,
Once again, unfortunately, whether I can afford it or not, because the reality is I'm watching runs on banks happen. It's not in the news, but it is in the local Facebook groups. There are local community groups of clueless people that I see every single day talking about how their debit and credit cards aren't working. And it is multiple times going back to the fact that whatever institution holds those has shut them off,
yeah,
not because anything they did, because they don't have it or there's a run in progress that they're trying to slow down. Um, there are lots of credit unions right now that at least in the Northwest area, but I don't know if it's in your area or not, but I am watching credit unions that have made some bad decisions because they usually do. And they have been locking down people's accounts and limiting their withdrawals.
right,
Um, I did get a I did get several change of terms notices in some of our business lines of credit.
oh, interesting,
They are locking down and lowering limits. And again, it's nothing that we're doing. It's nothing to do with our credit worthiness. It is absolutely everything to do with the fact that a lot of financial institutions right now are clawing to stay alive.
yeah.
So the collapse is happening.
Pay attention to this,
Act
guys.
accordingly.
Pay attention to this.
I can't
So
see it. What is gold
this is
spot price?
gold in the last
Did I miss
24
the flip? Is
hours.
that 24 hours?
In the last 24 hours, it's dropped
Oh,
almost
okay. There
30
you go.
bucks.
If it doesn't go below 2,000, I don't. So the thing about watching precious metals is like watching foreign currencies. It's a very multifaceted thing. It's not just a simple this then that, and so it's going down, and that means whatever. It is
Right,
very multi-layered. So the price of gold is affected by the lack of value of our U.S. dollar, and is that so?
right.
What's what's the time period on that?
So that's 1 year.
What
I just showed you the last 24 hours.
one
It
year?
dropped $30 in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
But in the last year, so in the last 6 months, okay,
It went
that is, I
below
mean,
2,000 and I got a bunch of gold.
it's it 6 months ago it was at 1600, okay, and it's
Yeah.
2030 today. So what you guys can expect is you'll probably see another drop, another hard drop. I'm saying maybe as low as like between 16 $1,800. You'll see a one. I think you'll see one more hard drop in gold
What makes you
before the bottom
what
falls
makes
out
you
of the
think that?
dollar because they're well, just because the way the Fed has been manipulating the whole currency collapse, and with the rollout of Fed Now happening in July,
Why?
I believe before they collapse the dollar, they're going to give the wealthy the opportunity to spend those dollars on gold. So I think we'll
I think
see a
we already
contrived. Huh?
I think I I'm speculating that it's already happened.
Oh, and that very well,
I
that
my
1600s,
speculation
that
is
may have been
that
16.
those
Yeah,
in the know, that could have been it. That could have been the last blip, but I'm speculating that 2020 was it.
that's very possible. Um, that's very, very possible. So right now, if that's the case, I mean, honestly, here's the story. If you went out and bought gold right now at $2,000 an ounce, okay, even if it dipped to 1,600 an ounce, you're still within your
Yeah.
lifetime going to see $4,000 or $6,000 an ounce gold. So you could very well see, beyond that, or a full system collapse where there's really no way to even know what gold is really, really worth. But I would say now is the
Have we
time to buy gold.
it, I don't disagree. I think if you have the funds available to buy gold, you should do it right now. I don't disagree at all. Um, and I'm not even speculating on the price. It's just what I know is going to happen in the next couple of years.
Right.
Have we on this show discussed the idea of or the concept of how we know that gold holds its value and why it's always a good idea to buy? I'm not sure if we have, but I heard it explained a while back as
Go for it.
such that uh, in the 20s, an ounce of gold was worth $20, right? A
Right.
$20 piece was worth $20, and that $20 could buy a man's custom tailored suit and nice shoes. It was,
Right.
that would allow a man to go to work.
Absolutely.
Um, it was roughly equivalent to 1 week of a professional's wage
Right.
and about a month of what then pretty much didn't exist. It was a middle class wage.
Right. Right.
And a commensurate amount of the 20s could purchase a basic house, right? So the purchasing power. And in today's money, what has happened, the reason why gold is such a consistent and solid choice is because now it's worth, let's just say it's worth $2,000 because it's been roughly hovering plus or minus $400 of that point for years.
Right.
The same thing. You can go to Dress for Men and get a semi-custom suit and a nice pair of shoes and everything you need to go work a professional job for about $2,000.
Right.
Um, the along the same line, silver. So a 5 cent nickel made of silver bought you a gallon of gas.
Right.
And where are we at now? Pretty close to that same nickel in the
Mm-hmm.
amount of silver that's in it because it was 8%. Will buy you a gallon of gas. It's worth about
That's right.
$5.
Right.
So
Yep.
what has happened is our minds get caught up in hyperinflation and the changing of the dollar. The reality is these precious metals are maintaining their value.
Right.
It's everything else around them that is changing so
Correct.
drastically. And so
Correct.
smart people do is extract their the majority of their holdings from the volatile things and putting them into more even things that hold their value. And historically, land has been a good place to do that,
Yes.
and it still can be. But land has now entered into the commodity range.
Right.
And what's happening is that land is now involved in these dips and sells and crashes and burns and resets and all the whatever terms you want to have it because of artificial manipulation. So land is not as
Correct.
safe of an investment anymore.
Yes.
But so gold's always a good purchase because gold stays the same pretty much all the time. What's
Right.
happening is the value of our dollar up and down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And the same for ammunition.
Well, it is a precious metal. I mean, let's just face it. It is a mined and manufactured series of precious metals: copper, lead, brass. Those are precious metals. They're just not as quote unquote precious as gold and silver, but platinum and whatever. So we just have to be really.
Palladium and yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, steel. I mean, when you talk about the iron and the things that get mined to come together and make the alloy that we know as functional structural steel, I mean, that's a precious metal, right? I mean, like I'm less
The
upset
further you
about the
are
fact
from
that
the place that manufactures steel, the more precious it is. So I see
correct.
uh, build packages like steel buildings, right?
Hmm.
Those get often up here will get sold 3, 4, 5 times before they get constructed because people buy them and then plans change or whatever. But it's such a process to get them here
Sure,
that they hold their value to a certain extent.
sure, sure.
And they are traded versus down if you're close to a place that manufactures those, nobody buys. Like, what do you mean you bought a building and didn't construct it? Yeah, I'll give you a penny. Like, there's no real value. But the further away
Right.
you get from the source of these things, the more they retain their value. So these are localized things. Look at what holds value in your area, what has demand, what will have future demand. And this is what the super rich multi-generational people do is they look at what is the future demand going to be and how can I get into that now? And I
Right.
think the future demand for ammunition and food is going to be huge. But that's just me.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. 100%.
I met with a friend yesterday who is sort of banking, in addition to those same areas that I am. He's gone to a new level of creating what's probably going to become the need for security.
Mm,
And listening to him, and others, not the first person I've heard do this. There are some. In fact, I think there's a whole group in Texas, probably lots of people doing it. Um, but training up a force that will be able because it's really hard to be proficient in the top tier in the top 1 to 3% of operators, if you want to call it. That's a good label. A lot of people use the operator. That's we're
sure.
talking about the top tier percent. You don't
Hmm.
get there overnight, and
No.
it's hard to stay there. And so there's a valid case for that's going to be a need.
Right.
And so if you're not good at growing food, but you're good at, staying up all night and doing spooky stuff in the dark, I bet
Right.
somebody's willing to feed you for protecting them. So that's
Yeah.
another
That,
thing to
I
consider.
totally agree. No, I think that's true. I think it's a
If
good.
you
I think
like
it's a good
action,
point.
that's
So,
absolutely the route that I went also. So, be scared of me. we'll
yeah.
we'll do a little reverse. We'll muddy the
There you
waters.
go. There you go.
Yeah, but you don't know. But you don't know.
You don't know. You don't know.
Uh, the more stickers on your truck, the less likely you are.
That's true. That is very, very true.
Uh,
So, definitely ammo, definitely precious metals, definitely food.
Food's never
Food
bad.
is never going to be the wrong choice. Anything long-term food. I'm really excited because we just found.
You can make some poor choices in food, but yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah. But I'm talking about like long-term food supplies. I was really excited. We just found a new store. It's not new, but it's new to us. Very, very close by. I was just like one town over. Does takes us about 15 minutes to get there. Um, I'm
Mm.
very excited because they have like bulk food buying stuff. Like you can buy, 50-pound bags of lentils and beans and limas, reds, small reds, large reds.
Person
I
with
mean, like,
money could.
yeah, you can buy wheat berries like in the store. Like I don't, but they don't have like einkorn, the stuff that we really like. They got like soft wheat
That'd be good.
and
No,
yeah, they've got like two or
no,
three.
I can't get it. I've never tried it.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Um, so
I've
no,
taken a
but
liking to the hard reds, the winter reds. I like the hard winter red. It's a gamey wheat, and I just like it.
yeah, I like it. Evidently the hard red is I'm learning is makes a really good sourdough. Evidently it feeds sourdough really, really well. Hard red wheat makes a good sourdough.
I have bastardized my sourdough, and I owe it lots of apologies. Mine comes from a multi-100-year-old recipe that I got, or starter, right? But I got a deal on flour about a year ago, and I got a couple 100 pounds of it for pennies in a
Yeah,
pricing mistake.
that's right. I remember that.
And it was quality. It was not like super organic, bread, whatever. It was just GP flour. It's nothing fancy. It's not organic. It's probably very dead, right?
Yeah.
But like I got pounds of it, so that's what I've been feeding my sourdough, and I think it secretly plots to kill me in the night because of it. But what else am I gonna do with all that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I give it the good stuff when I do a recipe and waking it up, right? But like the everyday feeding, I'm giving it the crappy stuff. I'm giving it the
There you go.
so
There you go. Well,
it
listen, man,
definitely it the smell.
that
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
time to wrap. I got to get back to work. This has got to go. You've got a crap ton of stuff going on. At this point
I
in the
do.
world, having not shot anybody yet today, we are planning on having a show next week. It won't be live. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be live, but listen, keep
We're gonna
praying,
have
keep
to
prepping,
pre-record
and
shows.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
We're get ready
next
for
week,
that. Get ready for some pre-recorded shows because I'm coming up on my big travel season. You're coming up on your travel season. And
yes,
right now neither of us are doing this on Starlink, but that is a possibility and it's not as clean. As bad as this may seem now, it would be way worse once I'm in the gold
I
dredge area doing
I do agree. I'm really excited. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be out in Newcastle, Colorado, running helping do a survival camp for young men. Very excited. I'll be leading worship, doing some teaching, and then they'll be learning how to start fires and do first aid and butcher a pig and all kinds of neat stuff. We're going
yeah,
to have about 50.
gonna take some man bun granola eaters and teach them the tarp taco.
Teach them the tarp taco. That's exactly right. So, anyway, hey, listen. God bless you guys. Keep praying, keep prepping, because our world's going to hell in a handbasket, and we want to take Jesus and try to rescue as many people as we can.
I'll leave with this. Find those churches that are saying the hard things from the pulpit these days because they need crush. And so if you're just going somewhere and doing this whole I get fed here, I really like the worship. Um, it's time to seek out the churches. Your church might not be doing anything wrong, but they might not be doing the most right, and the most right needs support right now.
Correct. Correct. On that note,
From that.